Right, today we're off to Embankment. As you can see, we're at Waterloo.
And the reason I'm looking quite so cheery there is that the walk today is quite short, but we're going to pad it out with a lot of old maps. First of all, let's have a quick overview of the route to Embankment Station. We start along the very gloomy Mepham Street, just outside Waterloo Station. South briefly down York Road. And there's a little narrow pathway off to the South Bank. We arrive at the very brown River Thames, ascend the pathway to the walkway beside Hungerford Bridge, over Hungerford Bridge, down some stairs at the other side which Google Earth Studio couldn't really mimic, but we go underneath the tracks of Charing Cross Station and emerge the other side at Embankment Station. And this is the building with the sort of upside down T on the top. I've made the traditional start to any visit to the Waterloo area with a visit to the Hole in the Wall pub. I'll nurse this pint and you can join me later. So let's get underway. We've just walked along Mepham Street and I didn't film there. And this is York Road going south, and this is the the rebuilt Waterloo Underground Station entrance. And I'm going to start the walk off. This is the path towards the modern South Bank. That's the Thames right at the end there. But I'm instantly going to go into the 1950s map of the Festival of Britain, just to start the old map section of this walk. This map dates from 1951. It's the Ordnance Survey 1950s series. We would exit from Waterloo Station onto Mepham Street here. The Hole in the Wall pub, if you know Waterloo, is roughly here. What is interesting just in the immediate Waterloo area are these three streets here. They were just in the process of being demolished. But on Whichcote Street, this number 5 here still exists, but it doesn't have a street attached to it, which is very strange. It survived into the current day. So our walk would be just along Mepham Street, York Road, under the footbridge, which was only recently demolished, and then along this footpath onto the South Bank nowadays. But in 1951, it's the Festival of Britain. The Dome of Discovery is roughly on the site of the Jubilee Gardens, and Nelson Pier is where the London Eye will go in later years. County Hall still exists, although it's a big hotel now. And around the Dome of Discovery, which was devoted to science, we have a lot of pavilions. The exhibition was split into various pavilions focusing on various aspects of Britain, both Britain's future, and this is a science area, and in what was called the upstream area, this was about Britain, contemporary Britain, although it was obviously 1951 to contemporary Britain. And there's a television pavilion here, which was just before everyone in the following 2 years saw the coronation on TV and decided they wanted one. The Royal Festival Hall, which is still on the South Bank, was already built, opened in the middle of 1951. And interestingly, here is a shot tower. This was left over from the previous industrial feel of the area. And we can go up to Waterloo Bridge, and there's the mud in front of Bankside. And crossing we're going to, just to reiterate, we're going to walk up here, across here, really underneath a thing called the Skylon, and then up onto, this is now the Jubilee walkway, but it was a Bailey Bridge after bombing in the Second World War. The pedestrians got across the river on a temporary bridge here. We talked about the shot tower earlier, but here was the Skylon. The The skylon was sort of cigar-shaped and covered in aluminium panels and became a symbol of the festival. Alas, it met an untimely end in 1952 when it was dismantled on the orders of Winston Churchill. He considered it a symbol of the previous Labour government, and as a result it was demolished and sold for scrap. So we'll cross the Bailey Bridge, and now the modern bridge. We come down some steps here, which are still here but much more modern, and under the embankment to Embankment Station, but it's called Charing Cross Station. It was renamed Embankment in 1976. And that's it for the 1951 map. This footbridge is still here over to Waterloo East. And when we look at some earlier maps, you can spot that the railway used to follow this line over to Waterloo East. We'll just quickly zoom out from the 1951 map, and we'll go back 51 years to the area around 1900. We've gone back 50 years or so to Waterloo Station around about the turn of the 1900s. That footbridge we were talking about in the 1950 map is a railway crossing Waterloo Road and connecting to what was called Waterloo Junction Station, Waterloo East nowadays. And these were the streets which were about to be demolished in the process of being demolished in the 1950s. They had previous names: Ann Street, Agnes Street and Francis Street. And Mepham Street, which now runs along the edge of the railway here, had a bit of a kink in it. So a walking route in the modern day would be along the side of the railway here, along York Road. This is the site here of Waterloo Underground Station, and that footpath that takes us through to the South Bank is actually following the line of an old street called Vine Street. There's a road here called Belvedere Crescent, which has quite an interesting history, but we'll come on to that on an earlier map. And if you follow the extension of Vine Street, College Street down to the Thames, the waterfront is all industrial, wharves and yards. Here's Hungerford Bridge, mind, and there's a Lion Brewery here. And the shot tower, which was left on the 1950 exhibition, 1951 Festival of Britain site, is still there, confined within the Lambeth Leadworks. So all these streets, which were also demolished in the 1950s, were all named after Archbishops of Canterbury. And York Road was named after the Archbishop of York. And Mepham Street, which is the last of the streets to exist, still on the street map, even though it's got a different route, was also named after an Archbishop of Canterbury. So Lambeth Palace owned all this land, which is why their names were as they were. As you can see, there's an iron foundry works, moulding works, engineering works. There's a lot going on industrial-wise, and obviously a lot of pubs. There was a pub on the corner just opposite Waterloo Underground Station in those days. And tiny streets like Princess Buildings, and more pubs, 1, 2, 3, lots in the area. In this area, the Eurostar will eventually be built, Eurostar platforms. Obviously, they didn't last, of course. Waterloo was only temporarily a Eurostar station, but the platforms fitted here where these sidings are. So Hungerford Bridge integrated the pedestrian walkway. It did in my lifetime as well. I remember quite a grim walk across Hungerford Bridge till quite recently. And it's 1900, so the embankment has been built by Bazalgette. Interestingly here, though, the Cleopatra swimming bath, which is on the site of a modern river bus terminal. So just concentrating again on Waterloo. Oh, South Station. I hadn't noticed that before. We'll zoom out and go to the 1860 map. This is a lot clearer when it's zoomed out, although it doesn't show any of the buildings of the area. So you can't see, apart from this brewery yard here, what industry was really here. So this is the 1865 Stanford map. Stanford and Sons went on to run the famous map shop in Longacre, and it's still around the corner in the Covent Garden area. But here across the Thames, the Victoria Embankment hasn't been built. It will soon be completed, but at the moment, just like the opposite bank, a whole load of wharves and stairs, and interestingly, Charing Cross station juts out into the River Thames. Obviously, Embankment station is going to go here where the Watergate is. Waterloo station has a much smaller footprint. We still see this railway going over the Waterloo Road into the Waterloo East area, but Waterloo station doesn't really extend much westwards. There's a whole gap here. And Vine Street, which we were looking at, where the pathway goes to the South Bank now, Mepham Street followed this course, and it was formerly called Vine Street. And here are those former streets of the area. These were built in the 1810s. Okay, we'll go back 60 years now to the 1799 map. So this is the Horwood map from 1799. Again, for clarity, I'll zoom in a bit. But Waterloo Station is just around about here next to the Belvedere Brewery. And Vine Street, well, it's still there. It's now a rural path. And there's a vinegar manufactory here. Waterloo Bridge would come roughly along this line. In 1800, everything had to be in walking distance of your home. Otherwise, you really wouldn't be able to get to work. Since Waterloo Bridge isn't there, there's no pressure on this very rural land here to be urbanized. So as late as 1800, this area was all a rural hinterland, albeit with noxious industries like a vinegar manufactory set in the fields away from people. So the main street, or the main road of the area, is called Narrow Wall. So on the river side of Narrow Wall are timber yards and wharves. Narrow Wall was really like a dike in the Netherlands. It held back a marshland originally from the rural area behind it. It was raised. And this kink in Narrow Wall became Belvedere Crescent, because Narrow Wall was straightened along this course, and Belvedere Road was built across this gap, and the whole of Narrow Wall became called Belvedere Road. Part of me would like to go along Vine Court and just to experience just some cottages by the looks of it and some fields around. If we compare the 1800 map with the 1950 map, you'll see that the riverbank has come inland somewhat. This is the 1800 riverbank, and the walkway on the south bank is here now. So if we go to where the bridge is, obviously there's no Hungerford Bridge, and Hungerford Bridge is named because the Hungerford Market was here. Embankment Station is somewhere around here. Oh, let's just check that. 1900. Oh, sorry, it's down here. So this is now Embankment Station, and in 1800, yep, it's in the middle of the river. But Hungerford Bridge was named because Hungerford Market was here, and Hungerford Stairs were here. Finally, just to complete the map series, we'll go back to the rock map from 1756. And we can see College Street, the very long Vine Street. The landscape hasn't changed much because Waterloo Bridge not being there yet, well, the urbanisation was quite static in this area. although Westminster Bridge had been built, and this would cause an impetus to this area, the new road. That's Westminster Bridge Road now. So Waterloo station is around about here. Where the vinegar manufactory was is now sounding delightful Cooper's Gardens. I haven't had a look at what Cooper's Gardens is, but I can see a bowling green, so it looks quite pleasant. Anyhow, let's bring us back up to date on a Google map. And we'll go back to our walk. Just to labour the point, we're walking along the former route of Vine Street, and round about where that runner is, we've reached Belvedere Crescent. London Eye coming into view. And this is the former Shell Centre, which has been turned into apartments. So Jubilee Gardens. And that's Belvedere Road behind, with a taxi and the bus. Lovely view of Westminster. I've been really blessed with sunny days in central London whenever I've walked, and this day was no exception. So for some 70 years now, this area has been party central, or rather festival central. With the addition of the London Eye to the streetscape, you really got to see a continuous area of... This is now 70 years of public use and a destination for people to come to. So this walkway used to be a lot closer to those trains. And I guess this dates it to 2012. No, 2002. Diamond Jubilee in 2012. And another glorious view. Other side of the Thames now. That's Charing Cross station. Horse Guards Hotel and the gardens in front. So ahead is Northumberland Avenue, but we're not going to venture onto it. So there's a sort of very secret back way, not so secret, it's a back way onto the Embankment. And then under the tracks of Charing Cross. And in just a few minutes we'll reach Embankment station. and I'm going to take you down to the tracks of Embankment Station, to the Northern Line northbound platforms.
Mind the gap. Mind the gap. Mind the gap.
I thought it would be fun to have an unexpected epilogue section. We use a lot of old maps in this video, but I thought it would be quite fun to trace the route of the modern walk through the landscape of the old maps. And we'll start in the modern day with my position in Waterloo Station. Just to show that history never ends, this is the contemporary map, and already WeWork has gone bankrupt and no longer should be on this map. And we see modern things like the IMAX and the lovely hole-in-the-wall pub just outside Waterloo Station. So let's go to where I was standing, and we'll show the route of our walk on a modern map towards Embankment Station. Down Mepham Street, York Road, through the alleyway with Waterloo Underground Station to our left, and over Hungerford Bridge to Embankment Station. We've gone back to the map of 1950, and the Festival of Britain site is taking up much of the South Bank. Let's go back to where I stood, and we exit onto Mepham Street, down York Road, through the same sort of alleyway where Waterloo Underground Station was, through a place called the Fairway, along the Bailey Bridge at Hungerford Bridge to what is Charing Cross Station in those days before it was renamed Embankment. So back to the map of 1900, and the streetscape has completely changed. Lots of old streets that weren't there in 1950 are here in 1900. So back to Waterloo Station, and they're gone along Mepham Street, along now a street called Vine Street, through Belvedere Crescent, across Belvedere Road, and onto the foreshore, which is quite industrial, up to Charing Cross Station over Hungerford Bridge. Back to the 1860s, and things are different again. Waterloo Station's footprint is a lot smaller. Vine Street is a continuous street to Waterloo Road, and a lot of streets like Ann Street, Agnes Street, Cross Street, which no longer exist in the route we're going to walk. So here I'm standing again through the disappeared streets, Belvedere Crescent, and we reach Embankment or Charing Cross, but in the 1860s the Victoria Embankment on the northern foreshore hasn't been completed, so the River Thames is a lot wider. Back to the map of 1800, and the Belvedere Brewery is standing amongst fields. It's a largely rural scene, and as I stand in Waterloo Station we're going to suddenly appear beside the brewery. So now we're walking across fields, we rejoin Vine Street, along a street called College Street, and the foreshore is a lot less built up, and obviously we arrive at Embankment Station in the middle of the River Thames. And finally we'll go back to the famous rock map from the 1850s, and we see it's even more rural, and there was the spot I was standing in Waterloo Station. We won't trace the route this time.